Alrighty. Okay. Well, there's Rocky. I got my root beer and my Parmesan cheese there. And I got my spaghetti. And I got my homemade sauce with the tomatoes, extra virgin olive oil, and garlic seasoning. There's fresh tomatoes in there that I cut up. It's good stuff. Anyway, I gotta strain the spaghetti. I do. I must strain the spaghetti. Relations between myself and the spaghetti are strained. This is a little more lighthearted than my video about the state of the country. It seems I stirred a little bit of stuff up there, which is kind of good in a way, because if people are talking, they're thinking, and thinking is good. You know, thinking is a good thing, for sure. So I at least got people thinking, and I hope that that at the very least, you know, my main motivation for telling this stuff and for saying what I believe is going to happen, really, is just, you know, because I think there's a lot of people in Canada who aren't aware. I think in some cases that's by choice, in which case, of course, they're free not to watch, and nobody putting a gun to their head and making them watch. And so it may be that they don't want to know, which is fine. If they don't want to know, they don't want to know. But for those who do want to know, and maybe just are caught up with life, because life is very distracting now, you know. Trying to survive is taking up people's energies, and I believe that's by design too. I think the people who are running the show are purposely causing a lot of stress for the average person, so that the average person can, so the average person will be so busy worrying about how they're going to pay for this and how they're going to do that, and you know, this bill is coming due and this is being done and I can't afford groceries and the rent is through the roof and you know, the bank's going to do this if I don't pay this and so on. I think that that's all being done by design, you know, and I think it's to overwhelm us and to keep us from really focusing on what's important. You know, they're making things, basically, they're making basic survival such a worry for people. You want to go inside? Okay, you can go inside if you want to. We don't want to let the mosquitoes in. That's the thing. Sometimes he takes his time and he lets a dozen or so mosquitoes in. Okay, go ahead. Mosquitoes are getting in, Rocky. Yeah, I know. You're letting mosquitoes in, though. We can't have that. We don't need that happening, my friend. See, that's the thing. Oh, look, I tipped your bowl over with my blankets. I did. I'm sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that. Anyway, I'm going to remake the bed in a while. That's quite the uncomfortable bed, believe me. But it's better than no bed, hey? Alright, I'm going to have to check him over for ticks because he's been outside. Oh, I got to get my bowl. Yeah, look, I got a tin bowl. I do. My goodness, Rocky, you're beautiful. You're my best friend, you know. I got to go out. I do. Oh, here he comes. Okay. He doesn't want to be outside, but he wants to be where I am. That's what it is. And I don't like being outside, but I want to be where you are. So that's kind of nice anyway. It's a compliment, really, you know. Very kind of him to want to be where I am. It is. Okay, we're going to put that there. Anyway, like I say, my big thing is there's a lot of this stuff we're really not going to be able to do anything about. But at least if we're aware of what's coming, we can take steps now to mitigate the consequences of it in somewhat. It's like, because I've led kind of a rough life, especially when I was younger, and I got into a lot of bad situations on the streets and whatnot. I had people jump me on the streets many times. I got into some awful brawls. I drove a taxi cab And during the time I drove a taxi cab, I had knives pulled on me. I was shot at. I had people hit me. I had all kinds of problems. I had trouble with the police, too. The police can be quite awful to you when you drive a taxi cab. In fact, they were putting people into my car that they didn't want to deal with, is what they were doing. So then if I had to call them for assistance, they weren't too pleased with me because I was now returning the problem to them that they thought they were rid of when they had no business putting that person in my car in the first place. Anyway, thing of it is, though, all of that made me very streetwise. And I remember one time I was in the city of Ottawa, and I had my young niece Emily with me. She was just small at the time. And we were walking down Bank Street, which is technically the main street of the city of Ottawa. It's right downtown. And anything you could think of that will go on in the city goes on Bank Street anyway. I wanted to go to a record store that sold old vinyl records, and I brought her with me for the walk. Anyway, we're walking along, and we got up to an intersection, and I noticed about half a block up on the next intersection on the same side of the street that we were on, there were a couple of men squaring up to fight. So I told Emily, I said, we're going to cross the street here. And I took her to the opposite side of the street, and we're walking down the next block on the opposite side. And just when we got about where those two men were, but even with them, they started punching the crap out of each other. And Emily looked up at me and she said, you knew that was going to happen, didn't you? And I said, well, yeah, I did. And she said, how did you know that? And I said, well, you know, I'm 30 years older than you are. So I said, I've had more time to observe these things. I said, what you just saw here, that was the first time you ever saw something like that. But I said, for me, it wasn't. I've seen this many times. So I said, with experience, you get to know. Plus, I said, I've been one of those two men. I've been in that situation that they're in right now. I said, when I was young, I said, I was in that situation myself many times. So I said, I recognized it for all those reasons. Well, you see, because I was able to see what was happening, I was able to read the signs. I was able to read, I guess you could say, the body language of those men that were about half a block away from us. I knew what was coming, and I didn't want to be walking through there with a little girl when those two started going at it, because I knew, go ahead in, Rocky. Well, he lets more mosquitoes in. Here we go now. Anyway, just wait, he'll be wanting out again. But anyway, he's a cat. They do that. Okay, bottom line is this. I knew that I didn't want to be in a situation where I was walking a little girl through there. Because those men, they weren't looking to hurt us. They weren't looking to hurt me, and they certainly weren't looking to hurt a little girl. They were looking to hurt each other. But you don't want to be walking through a fist fight. You know, you really don't. Plus, you don't know, maybe one of them had a weapon on them. Maybe one of them had a knife or something. You know, that would make things even more dangerous to be in the vicinity because, you know, there's no such thing as precision fighting. If you're too close to a situation like that, you may get hurt. And because I had my young niece with me and I was responsible for her safety, it behooved me, as a man, to be able to anticipate danger and to steer her away from it, which is what I did. So, see, there's an example there. Now, I didn't stress about it. I knew when we went down there something like that might happen. But I went down there with confidence because, as a man with experience, I figured I could handle myself in that situation. And if it arose, and it did, and I did handle myself. And I handled it correctly because I had experience with it. Now, I couldn't stop it from happening. That was beyond my control, but I could handle it, and I did. You know, and my young niece was her safety was not compromised by being in that area. Whereas if she had been by herself in that area, which would be crazy to turn a kid loose by themselves down there, but if she had been, that would have been a whole different scenario. But who knows what might have happened. Anyway, so that's the bottom line anyway, see, for me now, and I think she learned something that day too. She saw what can happen. And she saw it, though, from a safe distance. So again, I think it was kind of good for her in a way, just to see a little bit of the world and the things that happen in the world, but to do it from a distance where she wasn't in any immediate danger, you know. That's why I did what I did anyway. Taking us across the street, it was for her safety and mine too. Even if I had been walking alone, I would have crossed the street, because I wouldn't want to be in the middle of that by myself either, much less with a young child, you know. Anyway, when I do these videos, I recognize that I'm probably not going to be able to single-handedly stop any of this. I know that. But what I am doing is, because I'm aware of it, is I'm preparing for it. You know, that's what I'm doing. I'm preparing myself for whatever may come. Acknowledging that it may not happen, or it may not happen just the way I think it's happening. But what I'm doing is I'm interpreting the signs. You know, just like when I'm outside here, whenever a storm is coming, I see it coming. There are certain signs, you know, and then I'll say, oh, there's a storm coming. I better start packing everything up. You know, I better get ready to go inside, get under cover. It's the same sort of thing, you know. Anyway, these things that are happening in our country here, and in the United States too, and all over the world, and all the Western type countries, these things are very real. How it's going to end, I don't know. I can speculate on it, but I don't know. But the signs are all pointing to some pretty troubling times coming anyway, and we need to be prepared as individuals, and we also need to be prepared in order that we can defend and provide for those who are too weak to defend and provide for themselves. Just like when I had my young niece with me on the street that day, her safety was my responsibility, you know. If she were to get hurt in some crazy situation that I allowed her to be in the middle of, that would be a failing on my part. That would be a failing. That would be me failing as a man if that were to happen, you see. And so it's sort of how I look at it, you know. Those of us who know that something's coming, even if we don't know exactly what it is, and are preparing for it now, it's going to fall to us to help the old and the young, the frail, you know, the simple-minded, and so on. It's going to fall to us to help those people. It's not just about keeping us alive and keeping us well. It's about keeping them alive and well, too. That's our responsibility, you see. That's our responsibility. And because if you know something, and you become responsible, with knowledge comes responsibility. And that, of course, that's within your abilities and within your means. You know, I mean, you're not going to be of any good to anybody if you cut your own throat trying to help them. But at the same time, you know, it behooves us to do whatever we can to be prepared ourselves, so that we're less of a burden to others, for one thing, and also so that we can be of service to others. Because there are going to be a lot of people hurting real bad. There's already a lot of people hurting real bad, and it's going to get worse. Or at least that's how it's looking at the present time, you know. And I mean, our Prime Minister is definitely not, he's not a good man. I'll just put it that way. He's not a good man. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll talk to you later.